Why does Israel care so much about Poland's new law limiting property claims to 30 years? Yair Lapid said it's not about the money. The World Jewish Restitution Organization said it's not about the money. And you know what? I believe them. The two nations are so far apart on this issue. We would like the Israelis to understand our point of view. In this video, I will try to understand Israel's point of view. First, a recap of Poland's point of view. Reprivatisation is unfair to people who bought their houses at the end of communism. It affects daily life in Warsaw. There are predatory mafia-like groups who cut off power, water, and put rats into social housing to force elderly people out of their homes. A tenants' right advocate was burned alive. The threat of reprivatization makes us unable to improve social housing in major cities and makes a lot of land undevelopable. Here's one story. Someone successfully received a claim to a small plot of land that had become a park in Warsaw that had trees to honor the Polish Home Army. The person who was awarded this restitution claim wasn't allowed to build anything as it was a park. They cut down the trees in their section and erected a 6-foot wall around their plot. People who have legally acquired ownership of property based on decisions made many years ago cannot be 100% sure that one day a judgment will not cancel their ownership. It seems to us that Israelis expect us to endure this to no end, to be eternally under the threat of reprivatization. When do they say that claim should end? Never. Descendants of people who lived in Poland should be able to make claims, and their children and their children's children. In 200 years, Poland should still be liable for restitution claims. If a small village in eastern Poland becomes wealthy or the land becomes valuable, let's say through the development of a theme park or airport, it will become a target for claims. If an Israeli disputes this, tell me, when should reprivatization claims end? This is a viewpoint that Polish people wish Israelis understood or cared about. So, let's try to understand the Israeli point of view. They say it's not about the money. It's about the memory. I think in part they are telling the truth, and I will try to explain it now. Before World War II, there were large Jewish populations in many Polish cities, 40% of Białystok and Tarnów, about 30% of Łódź and Nowy Sącz. Something we need to consider is the history of Israeli people and the precarious geopolitical situation Israel is in. They have moved many times in history after being expelled. Israel is surrounded by 1 billion people who do not like them. It is possible the history of expulsion could be repeated. And even if you don't think that it's likely and that it can't happen, this history probably factors into their mentality, a sense of insecurity and not wanting doors shut to them. If in 50 years the situation in Israel degrades for them, let's say an American president is elected that calls Israel an apartheid state, or a one-state policy is enacted and an Arab majority controls the country politically, Israel starts resembling a dynamic looking like South Africa. Some will stay, but many will want a way out. I think the main reason why Israel reacts so much isn't that, as so many Polish people believe, that it limits financial opportunities to shake down Poland, but that it severs the last tie they have to Poland. In a large way, it also cuts them off from a return to Europe. If Poland has no law limiting the time that reprivatization claims can be made, they can return at any time. They can say, this shuttle here, this cemetery here, this quarter of the city here, we don't want the money, we want to return and live in Poland again. Similar to Palestine, they have an origin myth about Poland. They say it was and is their God-given land. A law that makes limitless claims to Polish land impossible is a rejection of a possibility of a Jewish return. It closes the door on their former home, a definitive end. If the law passes, property claims will be limited to 30 years. If the law passes, there will be no way to use the memory of a 40% Jewish Białystok or the 30% Jewish Warsaw to create a new reality. And this is why, from their viewpoint, it is anti-Semitic. It is a rejection of a future where Poland could be Jewish again. The memory of Poland's past will be limited to history, not the potential future. This is why they always talk about descendants. If not that the Israeli state is interested in the money that these claims can provide. Israel is a rich country, and these claims are obviously provoke backlash, not only in Poland, but because of the hypocrisy that it shows to the world. They certainly aren't giving any property back to Palestinians. Restitution claims are so important because these property claims are a tangible way for future generations to have an inheritance to Europe and the right to return. Without it, they will have to settle for Ukraine. If you want to learn more about this theory, please watch the video I did on the first Congress of the Jewish Renaissance movement in Poland, linked below. And if any Israeli wants to have a conversation or even debate, I would be happy to host it. Thank you very much. Do widzenia.